welcome to the Plant Wisdom podcast, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, yeah. So we got reconnected through our mutual friend, Judith, and I had already been by your booth though at Herbstock in 2018, I think it was, at the beginning of my reconnection with plants. So it was so cool to see you there and get some of the tattoos and I think even like an oracle card. So that was awesome. So tell us why you connected artwork and plants.
Well, that's a big question. um, so I guess I have to back up a bit because I think uh, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an artist. After I wanted to be a ballerina, but then I wanted to be an artist. And when I was in my, high school years, I was lovingly told by my parents and my teachers that this was a really poor idea for a career. And, the whole poor starving artist archetype was evoked. And so I went off on a detour and I listened to this outside wisdom. Loving outside wisdom that what I should do in order to be happy and healthy and joyful, live a joyful life and a successful life. And I went to college for marketing and graphic design, so I still had some arty stuff in there, but and then I went on with my life, and it wasn't until my 40s where I was, we all have that moment, right, when when we have that realization, either an illness or a tragedy or something happens in our lives. And unfortunately, that's the only way it seems that the universe can get through to us dense human beings that are living in our heads. And it, brought me to my knees, and I'm like, well, what am I going to, how am I? And I began then to get my paints out again, because all along in my whole, it's like, when I was not feeling well, when I was not happy, the place that I would always go to feel happy, to feel healthy, to all of that would be out in my garden or in the woods, or the garden center that I happened to just drive by, or wherever it was, or the botanical gardens, or wherever that was my happy place. And I have deep relationships with the plants and the flowers that grew there. I just, there's ones that have been with me my whole life. There's new ones all the time. And I would create gardens wherever I went. My husband and my kids are like, that's such hard work. Why are you doing that? But that's like, no, this is my play. This is my healing time. And if you need me, I'll be in the garden. That was my space, at some point I started to journal and draw and sketch them. And I realized that it was a form of communication with them.
Wow.
When I was drawing and sketching and journaling, there was an internal conversation that began to happen that was more somatic, in my body, and I would feel things. And it took another maybe 4 or 5 years from that point, to really trust that this was a, wisdom that I was connecting with, the plant spirit consciousness, the consciousness of the plants and the devas. Because we don't want to think we're crazy, right?
Right.
We have all kinds of personas and labels that we, ascribe to, and we want to, portray to those that we love, and we think that they're going to think we're nuts and, maybe not love us anymore. All those kinds of deeply held beliefs and stories that I waded through over many years. And so bringing together my art, getting my paintbrushes out again was part of the healing journey, and so it's still ongoing for sure. Nature's pace, of course, is it's a slow progression, but creating the oracle cards, creating the oracle deck, and then the soulflower business that sort of bloomed out of that. It's always been, it's been a healing journey, and it's always been about my personal growth. It's never been about the business, never. it's always been about my personal growth and the next highest, expression of how I want to be in the world. And, and nature's like, yay, keep going, keep going. And I'm like, okay, but now I'm tired. And they're like, well, now it's winter. You need to rest anyway. So, it's like, let's think, dream, so it's this lovely, slow journey, really. And
I
so
love
that's
that.
how the art and the came back into my life. And of course, you let go of all the things that are not aligned over time
Mhm.
because you're gripping tightly onto them. You
Yes.
don't even realize you're doing that, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. You have no idea. And so, so the plants are just so, I mean, Mother Earth as a teacher is so benevolent and so loving and, just so patient,
Yes.
so patient.
Yeah, I really relate to that too. Like I found artwork, I think, yeah, it was like 10 years I hadn't done it. And it just was a healing practice for me. And I love your way of your philosophy on the plants where they all have their own spirit and consciousness, and then we can connect with them and heal in that way.
For sure. They have different personalities, just like, animals or places even. I think
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about, the energy and consciousness, it's like you feel it. It's not necessarily something that you can articulate, but you can feel it. You can
Yes.
feel the difference in the plants and how they make you feel. Just like art, you know what art you like, and
Yeah.
a painting or a particular artist, I mean, it's like, it's how you feel. And those feelings are you connecting with your heart and with that consciousness of that, whatever it is that you're viewing, so,
Yes. I
um,
love that. Yeah. And I know that I was looking at your website the other day, and I love how you write this. You say, while science and modern medicine may offer a cure for the body, true healing is more than fixing a physical ailment. And true healing of the whole self can only take place when we accept responsibility for our own healing journeys and recognize the parts of our minds, emotions, habits, and behaviors that contribute to our well-being. So I fully believe that too.
yes. Well, it's interesting because of course, I do a card pull a lot, with because the oracle cards, they're not, I mean, a lot of people think like oracle cards are fortune telling and future telling or, that kind of thing, but they're not. They're just mirrors for
Yeah.
you and what you've forgotten as we go about our busy lives. It's kind of it's a mirror for what we need to be reminded of or brought into our conscious awareness, that
Yes.
unconscious. And so anyway, I pulled a card for our conversation today, and I pulled self-heal, which is responsibility, which is exactly that you just expressed, that you connect.
Wow.
And so I think there's no mistakes. This is energy in action, and this is resonance in action. And I think it's so beautiful once you start to trust that, then it just opens up your whole mind and your everything, your whole life to a whole another level of connection, with
Yes.
yourself and with the earth, which we are not just a part, we are earth. We're literally a form of the earth,
Right.
but, it's, and so, I'm always like, people talk about connection to the earth and connection to each other, but it took me a long time to actually embody that truth, that deep
Yeah.
understanding that no, I actually am a piece of earth. I'm a two-legged walking piece, but
Yeah.
I am a piece of earth, and I'm made from the earth, and I'll go back to the earth. And
Yeah.
then the levels that understanding really informed my, how I care for myself, and it changed how I care for myself. I mean, that's
Yeah.
work in progress, of course, but that was when that's self-heal, that's when I really took responsibility for my own care, is when I realized that truth. Because beyond that, it's like, it was more of I just talked about this in a class I gave, but it was more of an obligation, an
Yes.
obligation to take care of myself because my body was hurting, or it wasn't a caring for myself with the same sacred reverence that I care for the plants in my gardens or my animals or my children or my family members. It wasn't that same kind of care that I gave myself. And so it was
Yeah.
that. So that's really that, you know, and healing. I mean, we kind of, we think that healing is just to be symptom free.
Right.
I can't remember who said it. I remember like a long time ago watching some TED talk, and they're like, if you're symptom free, that means you're dead.
Right.
You know, if you've got no symptoms, you must be dead, because that's what we do. It's like we feel things. We, you know, it's like, you know, okay, it's not lovely to have pain. It's hard to have pain, but it is also,
Yeah.
you know, it's the way our bodies, it's the way the earth tells us when it's out of balance. It creates, you know, something to a storm or whatever it creates, or it creates an invasion of, you know, of plants, or it creates an invasion of animals, or an imbalance, and you know, and it naturally tends towards balance. And why wouldn't we think that our bodies are part of that? And so when we're out of balance, we hurt in
Right.
multiple ways. And yeah, so
That's
it's
so beautiful. It's so
yeah.
true though, the way you nurture your animals and your plants is how you can do that for yourself. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
why nature is so restorative for us because we
Oh,
are part of that.
for sure. I mean, I thought about it. It's like I wouldn't dream of giving my dog, you know, a candy bar, or, you know, I wouldn't dream of, you know, dumping herbicides on my lawn. You know, it's like, but I
Yeah,
would do that to myself. You know what I mean?
right.
I would drink coffee even though my body says no, thank you, or whatever it is. You know, because we're just that disconnected from our bodies. We live in our heads and not down here, and we think that the solution for everything is outside of ourselves. So it's like, oh, I just gotta
Right.
find the right, you know, the right doctor, or the right whatever, or the right protocol, the right, and
Yep.
it's not. So it's like, I think that, yeah, healing and curing are very different words that we don't really
Yes.
understand. You know,
Yeah, that's a great distinction to make
yeah.
because it's the whole inner work.
Yeah.
You don't need like those outside things. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, and that's it. I mean, and we hear this from the spiritual community, from many communities, that everything you need is within you, right? We're like, yeah,
Right.
but where?
Right. That took a long time for me too.
A long time.
And still
Still,
it's a journey. Yeah, exactly.
still working on that, you know. You know, it's, you know, sometimes you just we go to the victim place, we go to this
Yeah.
pity party place. It's just, it's old habits. And you know, and the more, but I feel like the more that we take responsibility, the more that we start to realize that we have a choice in everything that we do and how we react, you know, then we start to act, we start to
Mhm.
integrate our understandings, instead of kind of like, you know, I don't know how often we go through, we use like this again, this experience again, this, you know, it's,
Oh, yes, I loved that, also on your website because I also align with this, how you say life is a journey that engages the whole of our being, the mind, body, and soul in a spiraling process as we move through life, hopefully reaching deeper and deeper levels of understanding and self-awareness. And I totally believe that too. Like we spiral back to different areas where we didn't get healing that we needed, and like we weren't in the right headspace, we weren't present enough. So I love the way you worded that.
yeah, exactly. And then each time around that spiral, you know, you hopefully you take away something more. It's
Yes.
like, and I think it's like somebody said, it's like, you know, our conscious awareness is only just like a tiny percentage of us. Yes, you know, so it's kind of like the I feel like it's like the iceberg, you know, just show
Yes.
a little bit more and a little bit more of the iceberg into physical reality, you know, from our unconscious. Just, you know, we just do things by rote, we just do it,
Yeah.
we don't even think, you know, really.
Right.
And we're often places that we have no idea. I think about that in the shower all the time. I'm like, did
Yeah.
I just shampoo or did I not shampoo?
Right.
Yeah, and you're like checking the lid to see if it's got any shampoo. Because you're right,
So
you're like, you're
true.
not there, you're not present, you're not even, you know, you're not even there. I think that's just, and that's the practice for me, is like just like this, you know, like don't pick up my phone, just trying to
Yeah.
just whatever, just to be in the present moment with what is happening. And when I am, then I feel so much better. I feel so
Yeah.
much happier. And nature, I mean, my goodness, it's just like, it's the best medicine, just a breath of fresh air, or standing beside a tree, or, even with your house plant, if you don't have access
Yeah.
to nature or garden, or the dandelions pushing through the cracks in the sidewalks, it's like, just to just connect with that just for a moment, it's so healing.
It
It's so
really is. I'm loving tea for that lately. I
mm.
actually have tea right now here. It's chrysanthemum tea.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so I'm getting it that way, and essential oils as well. And I love on your website how you have a blog with the different plant messages, like dig deeper in the plant spirit, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So how did you tune into the plant's consciousness? I'd love to know.
Yeah, well, so I have this process. So you've heard probably about shamanic journeying, right? When
Mm-hmm.
somebody does a shamanic journey, and they hold an intention, and there's the drumming, and you go down to the lower earth or whatever, and when I was trying to see whether what was coming through to me was, when I wasn't trusting. So I went and often tried to do, did some shamanic workshops and some learning. And every time I tried to do that, I would go down into the dark, and I would sit there. That would be it. That would be it.
Yep.
And for such a visual person, I was like, well, where's the, and then all the other students would be like explaining these beautiful, meeting these consciousness, meeting these plant spirits and this, anyway. And then I realized, after I tried to fit into that mold for a while, I realized that the way that I connect with them, is the way I journey with the plants, is in my everyday life. And so what I started to do was to use the moon cycles, actually, because the moon cycle, I mean, it's just a nice framework for the natural rhythm of the universe, which is always like an expansion and a contraction. It's like an in-breath and an out-breath as we go around. And that the moon shows us that, it's like a growing of the light, high point, like a summer energy, and then a
Yeah.
waning of the light, and then into the winter. I mean, in this cycle, you can see it in just day and night, in our 24 hours. You can see it in the seasons. And then a nice length of time is the moon cycle, the 29 days moon cycle. And so I started to really connect. So I would in the dark moon, I would invite in a plant spirit, and this is all done in ceremony and random. I don't consciously say, okay, I'm going to do this one next. It would be chosen.
Mm.
And I would invite that plant spirit in. And then for the entire moon cycle, I hold that intention that I am connecting with that plant spirit. And the way I hold the intention is to bring it into my conscious awareness every morning, greet that plant. And I do the temporary tattoos. That's another way to, like, if I have a temporary tattoo, or I write it on my hands, or I put an image of the flower on my home screen on my phone. So I'm constantly, like, it's like a friend,
Yeah.
having a friend to stay in my life for this time. And then I pay attention. I pay attention. And I think that I spend time with the plant if I can in physical reality. I spend time journaling, but I also just look at what's going on in my life, so, and it's, I used to be surprised. I'm not anymore, but it'd be like, well, events that would be happening in my life requiring me to remember this aspect of the plant, or remember the personality of the
Mm.
plant. And I would see them in my social media feed, and I would be, well, what's going on in my life right now when I see it, so it's like, it's just making connections and being aware, kind of like, a lot of people make gardening journals,
Oh, cool.
and they're paying attention, like, this plant didn't do well over in this area, or this plant needs more sun, or you know this year. So it's the same thing, but I'm looking at myself like a house plant, like a
Yeah.
complicated plant, and I'm paying attention to what's going on in my life, and how that relates to that plant that as I understand it. So it's and I think that what happens also is insight into that plant even more. You know, it's there's it no it's all these synchronicities help me to deepen into my relationship with that plant. It's just like understanding a person.
Yeah.
When you spend time with a person, you get to know more and more. Oh, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that about you. And so it's that's it. I mean, that's the process. But the waxy moon, it's like there's always so much happening. There's so much going on, and I'm writing notes here, and I scribble down things. I take notes on my phone. I have journals, and I'm just sort of like gathering all this
Yes.
information, all this light. As the light grows, I'm seeing more, and I'm seeing more. More is coming into my awareness. More is coming into my awareness, and then at the full moon, I'm like, okay, look. Have a look around. Look at this. Look at everything that you've experienced over these last couple of weeks. And by that time, I'm like, oh, I really get the story. I get the story that you know, I've been weaving this time.
Yes.
And then as the moon starts to wane, it's a time for me to process it, which is when I do a lot of artwork. It's when I do writing, because that's a really helpful way to bring in all this thoughts and all the feelings. And I write the story and that also helps me to integrate it and to go, okay, yeah, I'm done with that. I'm done with this piece. And you can weed that piece out. And that in your life, in your story, you weed that out and put it in the compost heap, so that there's,
Yeah.
as we get back to the new moon again, then it's time to kind of invite a new friend in, and there's space for them because you've made space. And so it's this lovely, slow process. And that's not to say that I'm not, connecting with other plant spirits during that time. I do have a daily practice when I choose the plant. And then there's just the ways that they show up in nature all the time.
Right.
All the time. And once you are, I mean, I think having the artist background, you see things, you see details, and I don't think that that's anything that anybody can't do. It's just,
Right.
anybody can see. You pay attention to the colors, you notice the shadows, you notice the plants that are, get your attention, and the colors and the shapes, all of it. You notice stuff. And so it's
Yes.
just a case of this noticing it and understanding that everything is energy, and everything is resonating and vibrating. And I feel like each of the flowers has their own vibration, and so everything that I experience at that time is a reflection of that. It's just this lovely soup that you get, this sea of consciousness that you get to kind of interpret. So I think that's why it's a story. It's literally like a story. And that's why I say, like, I think like flower medicine or earth medicine, it's story medicine, it's story
Yeah.
wisdom, and it comes out through each of our stories. So you inviting in the same plant spirit for a moon cycle, and me doing it, we're going to have different stories, but they're just
Yeah.
like they're just different perspectives.
Yeah.
And so, here's the plant, and here's the medicine, and here's your perspective, and here's mine, and here's somebody else's. And so that's why I love to gather with others that are doing
Yeah.
this and share in circle all of our different stories, is it fleshes out this story in such a beautiful way. And I don't know, it's just such a beautiful process. And I love getting to know myself more through the
Yeah.
stories of other women, and specifically. And and it's just a powerful way to realize that we are so similar. We're
Yep.
diverse in our experiences, and where we grow, and all those things. But our stories, the underlying energies of them, are just, they're all the same. And
They
when we have that
are.
understanding, it brings us together. It brings us together in such a beautiful way,
That's
reconnects us with
so
the earth.
true. I
Yeah.
love that story medicine. That is so spot on. I want to try doing that just for my own practice, like following those moon cycles. I never thought of the moon in like the breath pattern that you were talking about. That's very interesting. It makes so much sense too. And just being intentional with the plants. I love how you have the altar art and the oracle cards and the tattoos, and also I liked the coloring books. I just saw that that is very like right up my alley, because I think you can connect with them in that in all these different ways, because
Sure.
we're multidimensional, the plants are multidimensional, so we're all going to get different answers.
Exactly, and we're all individuals, and it's something
Yeah.
that works for you is not going to work for me, and then even within that, it's like something that works for you in the summer might not work for you in the winter. It's like,
Yes.
you know,
That's very important too.
and so yeah, it's just like it's a real it's a embodied understanding of the constant chaos and motion of the universe, but it has a pattern. It has that spiraling in and
Yep.
out breath. It has that pattern, but it's not controllable. Like humans, we try to control it.
Yeah.
We try to control it 9 to 5, or this constant productivity when we should be resting. We
Yeah.
try to control everything, and life and Mother Earth, I mean, she just has a good old laugh at that, I think. Control life, well, how about this? Yanks the carpet.
Definitely. So true, so true. Oh, and I also love on your website, it was funny because you were talking about integration, is the free daily Oracle card pull, which I did before this too. I pulled for this
Did you?
recording. Yeah, which is funny that you mentioned that too. And I got Mugwort, which was about integration too, of like light and dark aspects. So kind of what we're talking about now, like, it's there's different cycles and there's different aspects to ourselves, and integrating all of that, and the plants can help with that.
Absolutely. They really help us to move out of our judgmental minds and into our bodies, our hearts, and just to
Yes.
see all of it as yeah, just all of life as it's conspiring to help us grow. I mean, the nature of life, I mean, life is just always expanding and growing, and why wouldn't we be a
Yeah.
part of that, even though we really try not to? And so
Right.
it's and everything is changing all the time, all the time, and the plants really help us to integrate that understanding. And yeah, I mean, all the things on my website are all things that I've used in my own life, that the things that I find
Yeah.
supportive and helpful. And so that's the spirit in which I offer them. And the deck, so if the people didn't want to buy the deck, they can just go on there and just use it, just see it, because it's not my, I mean, that's the thing that I feel like it's not mine, you know what I mean? So I need to share. I mean, I want to obviously support myself and support my business
Yeah.
mostly, actually, but and it has been self-sustaining. It's been an interesting journey for me, that in and of itself too, because it's like, it's not like I actually have ever made an income from this in 4 years, but it's been this beautiful, like, I've always had the money to do another reprint or to make something else,
Yeah.
but it's just this beautiful sort of self-sustaining things. And I know there's a lot of lessons in there too for me around receiving and allowing
Yes.
myself to be seen and all these kinds of
Yeah.
but this is just going back to the story medicine. I mean, it's just, we all carry this wisdom of the earth in our bodies, and so I feel like, sharing my stories and sharing, it's not mine. It's like, it's just coming through me in a way.
Right.
And so it's an offering, really, and for the earth and for myself. And so that's why I kind of try to make it as accessible as possible. You don't really need to buy anything. You don't need to buy anything to do this work, but if you want to,
Right.
here's some ways to support people. But you can connect in with it on any level, really.
Yes.
Any
I
level.
love how all your offerings, though, like you said, you've used them in your own life, and they're all very intentional. And I want to get to talking about your um, new offering, but I know you were working on this, and I was just really intrigued to know about your community virtual garden, and what is that about?
Oh gosh, yeah, this is,
Mhm.
well, I ran, so like I said, everything that I do is inspired by what I feel is the next level of growth from me. And so about a year and a half ago, I started I realized that I realized I was doing this process, this journey process, and the moon cycles, and writing my deep dives and doing it, and I was all just me doing it by myself. And I'm like, I need to be in circle with other women. I need to hear their stories. This is the next level of understanding and growth for me. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to hold a circle. How am I going to? Anyway, so I started this sanctuary program online, which I ran for 15 months, and I basically opened up to the women that said yes to this process. Um, I shared my process. I shared it out, and we would journey together in the sanctuary. And it was a very, it was a smallish circle, maybe 18 to 24 women around each moon cycle, and I got to share, like, it was intense. I was holding the space. I was holding this circle. I was sending emails every week. Well, this is what I'm doing now. And
Yeah.
here's an art project, and here's an art video, and here's a Zoom for our full moon Zooms and all that sort of thing. And I started towards the end of that to just feel like, oh my goodness, this is becoming hard again. And you know how things, it's like, oh, this is just starting to take off. But I was like, it was starting to move out of alignment for me. And I knew the
Mhm.
next piece of growth was coming. And to this, like an artist, you've got to know when to stop putting the paint on the palette, right? On the paper.
Yeah.
You got to stop, and you got to put it down, and you got to then get a new piece of paper out. And so what I felt that I needed to do is be able to do this process, but not hold the space all by myself. And this idea of unity, I think this is where we're moving to, in as a human collective, as a earth, as a earth. We're learning how to be in community with each other, and to embrace a diversity of human life, human expressions, as well as nature. And so I decided, and also simultaneously, I'm like, I cannot be on Facebook anymore. Even Instagram, I'm just finding it. I had
Yeah.
such a hard time in 2020. I had some of my artwork was not approved to be on, like weird censorship stuff,
Yeah.
because I was saying that my tattoos might, help inspire courage, no, that's a false, this is not FDA right. I had some really bizarre experiences, and then was finding that I'm always giving on those platforms. I'm always sharing. It's a one-way interaction. It wasn't helping me grow anymore. And
Mhm.
then not only that, but like Facebook was, asking me to pay for my work to be in front of the people that have even said
Right.
yes to my work. And so I was like, you know what? My whole life, everything that I've done, it's like, I was buying organic food 30 years ago, even at the great expense, and not because it tasted better, which is what my family were like,
Yeah.
so much money, it doesn't taste any different. I'm like, it's not because of that. It's because it's the way I want to direct my energy. This is how we should care for the earth. Anyway, let's
Yeah.
pull those threads together. This community garden, this a beautiful platform called the Mighty Networks, and it is private. It's a social media platform for sure, but it's private. It's not, you're in charge of your feed. You're in
Yeah.
charge of your algorithm. There's no one trying to push things in front of you. And I put out a call to a lot of the women who had been in the sanctuary, and I said, I need help with this platform. I don't want to hold this space all to myself. We need multiple different voices to be here, not just mine. We need multiple perspectives. And 12 beautiful women stepped up to be an Earth Wisdom Council there, and then when I say Earth Wisdom, I mean because we are all Earth, and
Yes.
they have all of them, many of them are plant people, and work with the different plants. Judith is on the Earth Wisdom
Oh.
Council.
Yeah.
And then there are others. There are astrologers, there are death doulas, and there are just anyway, just and
Wow.
herbalists, and modern my marketing woman is there too, and she's I call her my business midwife. We're doing it in different ways, all
Yeah.
so we have these women, and so I'm doing the same process. It's a you can join this garden, and I share my process in there, that's part of it, but you'll also get all the wisdom from all these other women, and it's just a beautiful community. And I call the process Tending the Garden of Your Soul. That's the name of my book. And it's just, it's an ongoing thing, and so it's a space to explore that process of connecting with your heart in your everyday life, and having a supportive community that knows how to witness and honor and love each other in our diversity. And we're not trying to change anybody. We're not trying to
Hmm.
convince them that, or fix them, or say that their way is wrong. It's just, it's a space for us to really learn how to sister each other. It is for women specifically,
Uh,
to sister each other. And and I know that has a lot of connotations, but just social media has become this place where we can just say horrible things to people, and
yeah.
or just cancel them if you don't
Yeah.
agree, or all these kinds of things. And it's like, that's not moving towards unity. Unity is acceptance, and this is what the flowers and the plants are wanting us to remember. And when we do that, that's how we're remembering ourselves whole and perfect, just as we are in this process. And that, to me, is how we're going to heal this planet. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, we can do all these band-aid approaches, and we can have regulation, but I don't think I don't think regulation is going to solve the problem.
No.
I think the problem is spiritual. We've forgotten our
Yes.
connection to each other. We've forgotten our hearts. We've forgotten our interconnectedness with all of nature and all of life and all of each other. And we need to create spaces for ourselves to explore that way of being. And so that's what this garden is. And
Mm.
we're just coming out of the winter. So in the winter, it was lovely, because I was like, we're just nourishing the soil now, and it was quiet in there, and it wasn't like
Yeah.
we had to, like, oh, what have I missed, I don't want that. I want people to come in there. I want women to come in there because they want to, because it's nourishing, because it's like you're going out into the real garden and
Yeah.
spending time. And I found, especially as the spring energy is coming, and it's things are cropping up, and there's a couple of groups there, and we also have a marketplace. So because
Oh,
everyone has wonderful things to offer and share.
wow.
And so I'm like, well, we don't want to we don't feel like we're being sold to or advertised, but you can go to the group, the marketplace group, and everyone can share their workshops and their stuff, and so we can support each other in that way too. And so it's just, and it's evolving. I don't know exactly how it's going to play
Yeah.
out, but that's like what the garden is too in real life.
Right.
You plant your seeds, hold that intention for what it is, and I have these 12 other women holding that intention with me. And and so I can also, like, I can have bad days where I don't want to check in, and I'm tired, and I know that the space is being cared for and tended and nurtured when
Yeah.
I'm not there. And
That's so
that's,
beautiful.
yeah, so I mean, that's the intention I'm holding around that space. We'll see how it grows, and I hope it does grow. And um there's a lot of magic that's going to be happening there. But I found more and more as I'm engaging with that, I don't even connect into Facebook or Instagram,
That's beautiful.
hardly
That's
at
so
all.
needed though to have that. I feel like you're almost recreating like how it was, before the internet. Like we had these
Oh,
circles of people, like you're just
yeah.
connecting it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to take I mean, it's like the social media. I mean, the premise, I mean, particularly like when Instagram first started, we really did have connections.
Hmm.
I made some beautiful relationships there. And then
Yes.
it got tinkered with. To become a
Yeah.
profitable platform, and it changed entirely, and it doesn't feel good anymore. It's like going into the scary woods that have been
Yeah.
neglected, or something.
That's
It doesn't
such a good
feel good.
analogy.
It doesn't feel good. And
It
I'm like, I don't want
doesn't.
to spend time somewhere where that's again that kind of that obligation to do something or be somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe my business will suffer, but I don't think so. I think that I need to, my business is me, and I'm
Yeah.
suffering if I'm walking in the scary woods all the time. I don't want to be there.
Exactly. That's
So
the truth. It's more important to have that, to do what's
yeah,
better for you. Yeah,
yeah,
and I totally
exactly.
agree.
Yeah, and that honestly, like, that's what it's sort of an interesting thing. I look at what's happening in social media and in our culture, and and I see that we're trying to understand what unity is, but it's kind of being inverted.
It is.
It's
Oh,
being
it is.
inverted, and it's being said, well, you have to self-sacrifice yourself for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I've spent my whole life, over giving and self-sacrificing, and it just drained me. We need to fill our cups to overflowing, and then we have stuff to give. And that's what I want to nurture in that space, care for ourselves in that way, and learn
Mhm.
how to direct our energy, direct our attention in ways that fill us up and not
Yeah.
drain us. So
This is the most important work
yeah.
right now. I
Oh,
love that you're
absolutely.
doing that. And I want to also talk about oh, is this the same thing, your class that you're working on, Tending the Garden of Your Soul? This is more about self-care, right? That's
Well,
coming
that
up.
was something and actually that just happened last Thursday, because I was a guest teacher in Deb Sewell's beautiful course. Botanic Wise is hosting.
Ooh.
Karis Lindruth and Botanic Wise is hosting this 6-week healing garden course with Deb Sewell, and I was beautiful, because like 22 years ago, I was a medicine maker. I was a tincture maker at Avena Botanicals. It was part of my journey back to myself. And so this is
Cool.
this is a beautiful space where I get, she invited me to come and teach with her. And so that was what I was talking about. Talking about caring for ourselves from a place of sacred reverence. And I also am connected with the Organization of Nature Evolutionaries. I don't know if you know them, but
I don't, but that sounds amazing.
so that's Pam Montgomery and Jen Fry, and so they're based, I think in Vermont. I'm not sure, but they have a board of directors. But they're offering a similar class. It's coming. This is what is happening. And I can't remember the name of it exactly. I'm going to look it up, because
Yeah.
that starts next Wednesday, and that is a 4-week class offered through Organization and Nature Evolutionaries, and they're doing fantastic work, and I
Ooh.
highly recommend what they're
Yeah.
doing to let me just see if I can find that for you, or I can share it with you.
Yeah, and I can include it in the notes for the show, but I'm
Yeah, I
really
just want to support
interested.
these people that are doing amazing work. And Pam Montgomery is one of my, I was a little fangirly around her, because when I was trying to understand what I was feeling, I came across her book, Plant Spirit Healing, I think that's what it's called. And I read her book in an afternoon. I'm like, that's what it is. I'm communicating with the plants. This is what it is. So it was really like, it was
Yes.
the materials that it lands with you when you most need it, right?
Right. Right,
Okay, so their
exactly.
workshop is called Coming Home to Nature, Ways to Engage in Vital Relationship with Earth and All Her Beings. And it's um, very fairly priced class, and some amazing wisdom to be shared there. And they also have a community on Mighty Networks. So,
Very
so does,
cool.
and so does Botanic Wise. And so I feel like these beautiful communities, like, are popping up, and we can go and we can choose which communities we want to engage in, instead
I
of,
love that.
instead of going on social media that's not nurturing anymore.
It's
So
not, it's
yeah.
not. And I have heard of Mighty Networks, and I'm really interested in learning more about your virtual garden and then
Oh,
this
you could come and join
course.
us. Come
Yeah,
and join
yes.
the garden, and come and
Oh,
see.
I love that.
Come and see.
Yes,
I would
yeah.
love
So,
I'd love you to bring your medicine there and your
oh
wonderful
my
work.
God, this is just like, you're my people. Like, this kind of group is my people. Like, I think there's just that understanding. Like you were saying, we have all different stories, but the underlying connection is like our relationship with the earth and how we view healing. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
perfect.
I was just discussing with the Earth Wisdom Council, because there is this idea, like, like-minded, but I also feel like that's not what I want to do. It's like-hearted. It's
Yeah.
like-hearted.
Yes.
I don't want to be with a group of people that all think the same things. I want to be
Same.
with a group of people that have, like the plants, we're healthier in our diversity. The gardens
Yeah.
are healthier when there's a diverse series of of different species, right? And so, those are the kinds of communities, like-hearted communities. So I would love to
Absolutely.
have you there. I'd love you to
Yes.
join in over there. So
Very excited about that.
mm.
So, as we wrap up here, I want to ask you, where can my listener find you online? And everywhere on the web. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have a lot of, I do have a presence on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not really there. So that's, I would say the best thing to do is go to my website. I send out, which is mysoulflower.com. And I send out an email. I have an email thing, and that's usually around the full moon, once a cycle, that I send out a in-depth kind of newsletter, old school style
Oh,
newsletter with a lot of
love
content.
that.
My hope is that, it's like if you choose to be on my email list, that you can sit down with that email when it comes in with a cup of tea and enjoy it as something, rather than the spamming you every 3 days with
Yeah.
stuff. And I don't add anyone to my email list, even if they buy something on my website. They have to opt in to be on there, and
Mhm.
that's really the best way to kind of connect in. With everything that's kind of going on, and then they can see my shop there, and they can see the community garden. I'd love to invite more women to join us in the community
Yes.
garden, because I really do feel it's good medicine. It's really good medicine.
It is. Yeah, and I'm sure my listener is interested in that, as am I. So thank you so, so much for coming on
Oh,
the
it's been fun.
podcast.
A pleasure to share with you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yes.